Hey guys, welcome back. This is the finale of What If Deku Was Raised by Nezu. Copyright disclaimer, I do not own this fanfiction in any way possible. Information about the author and this fanfic is in the description. Now without further ado, let's start the story. Flashbacks and cookies. I can't believe we are going to UA soon. Izuku almost bounced in excitement as he talked to his friends. It's almost a week away. Are you guys excited for it? I know I am. The three childhood friends were all sitting in Shoto's room with a plate of warm chocolate chip cookies that his sister made. She was still practicing a bit because she wanted to surprise her students to reward their good behavior. Of course I am. I'm very delighted to be with both of my friends even if we might be in separate classes, Tenya replied, breaking a chunk out of his cookie to eat it more cleanly. Shoto looked up with his cookie sticking out of his mouth. I don't think we will be separated from each other. I feel like it would only be logical to have us together since we are already familiar with each other. And I guess we will be the two recommended students in the class? Izuku asked. Since Inesa is going to Shiketsu, that means we have a good chance of being two of the four recommended students. By the way, Tenya, you still need to tell me what your next free day is so we can introduce you to Inesa. Yeah, you are both tall and loud. You have some similarities, so I feel like you two will get along, Shoto agreed with cookie crumbs in his mouth before realizing what exactly Izuku was getting at. He swallowed what was in his mouth to turn his head to Izuku. Oh, right. I forgot to tell you guys. Tenya looked up worried. What is it? Is it anything bad? Do I need to find an alibi? Izuku questioned, looking ready for anything that Shoto would tell them. Nothing that big. I contacted UA to let them know if I got enough points in the entrance exam to just count that as my acceptance. I only took both exams as more of a wider net to throw. Plus, I want to show Tuya that I made it into UA by myself, Shoto explained. And it might be a plus because Yayazoro will make it in. She is very talented and deserves to have a spot in the hero course. Izuku pursed his lips and thought, why didn't you just reject his recommendation? Wouldn't that be an easier way to show that you could make it in? Well, he is my brother. I would feel bad. But I made it in both ways, and Principal Nedzu helped me out. I have to get used to saying that now that he is going to be our official principal, Shoto replied, having his hand moving toward the most burned cookie on the plate before turning at Ida. How about you, Tenya? What are you thinking about? Tenya straightened up. Well, I was happy when I received my acceptance letter as well. Although I wish I could have done more. I felt like I hesitated during the exam when another participant was in trouble since the zero-pointer was involved. Ah, the robot that the purple kid took care of, right? I heard some strangers talking about it, Shoto clarified, midway through a warm chocolate chip cookie. Ida nodded, yes. If I could do it over, I would have thought about what my brother and Izuku would do. I hesitated at first, but I went to help because I started to think about what my brother and Izuku would do. Wait, why me? Izuku questioned while Ida raised one of my eyebrows back at him. Izuku paused with his half-eaten cookie in his hands. Gee, I wonder, Shoto remarked sarcastically. Shoto then looked back at Tenya with cookie crumbles decorating his mouth. What about me? Tenya sighed before instinctively wiping the crumbs away from his mouth with his sleeve. Oh, pardon me. You had crumbs on your face. Yeah, whatever. Why wasn't I on that list? Am I not a good influence on you? Tenya blinked back at him. Shoto, you literally told a police officer to frick off when he tried to tell off your brother for something. Shoto looked at him with a knowing look. Yeah, he was being a dick. Wasn't it deserved? Oh, it was. Don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't do it to his face like that. It was a bit disrespectful, Tenya corrected himself, but I'm not saying you aren't a good influence on me or anything. My brother came up first and Izuku came up next since he brought up that fact he accidentally took the exam before. That's the reason why I thought of those two so quickly at that moment. Trust me, almost everyone popped up in my mind afterward when the exam ended because I thought about what the others might do. Alright, you are forgiven, Shoto stated with a flourish of his hand to steal the last bite of Tenya's cookie out of his palms to eat for himself. He chuckled lightly at the shove that Tenya gave him afterward. But on a serious note, I wonder what the actual classes would be like in UA. I was wondering about that as well. All of the faculty members are already aware of us and knew us since we were young. so we have both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that we have a trusting bond already with the faculty. The disadvantage is that they know almost every embarrassing story that they can use to their own advantage, Tenya said, holding his hands up like its own hands were a balancing scale. I also wonder what the official training will be like. We haven't done really anything with the training grounds since they were only used for UA students. But we have been through hero situation exercises before, Shoto added his own thoughts about it, wiping his hands clean with a napkin. Remember when we began training when we were a little younger? What ages were we? Tenya continued, humming in thought, we must have been like 6 or 7 when he started to tutor us. Shoto nodded, yeah. And even then, we didn't do anything besides learning control and exercise. We began real training when we were a bit older at like 9. I remember the first day we trained like it was yesterday, Izuku sighed, bringing his hands to rest behind his head. Ah, past memories. Flashback. Training? Shoto asked weakly with his eyes widened in surprise. Yeah. Papa is going to tutor me and then train me. And we can all train together. Shoto looked like he was taken aback by the news before he saw Nedzu approaching the 3 friends. The training in question will just be outdoor activities and exercises. It would function more as physical education than real training since you 3 are still so young. If you wish to train to be a hero, I would advise you to wait until you are around the age of 9 or so. Nedzu grabbed Shoto's small hand to reassure him, don't worry. This is a safe space. The faculty here and I would never force you to do anything you didn't want to do. You have nothing to worry about. Hey, Izuku and I practiced my quirk, Ida announced proudly, drawing Shoto's attention to his other 2 friends. Izuku looked excited to hear that news. Oh really? Show me, Tenchan. Okay, here I go. Ida nodded, jumping up before breaking off into a sprint. Izuku cheered as he watched his friend kick up the grass while he ran. Ida's engines were making him go so fast that he almost looked like a blur. It might have been because he was still so small. The blur didn't last because Ida had eventually run into a tree headfirst on the way back. Izuku gasped worriedly, rushing over to his friend, Tenchan. Tenya! Shoto shouted after Izuku, Nedzu following behind him as the 3 ran to where Ida was. Ida looked up with his glasses askew on his face and a red mark on his forehead. Ow, tree bark, Ida mumbled as he rubbed his forehead. Nedzu asked, Ida, would you like to go to recover girl? I'm sure we can get her to help or maybe get some ice to help as well. Yes please, Uncle Nedzu, Ida mumbled, allowing Izuku to help him up. He stumbled just a bit because of the uneven ground caused by the large roots of the tree. You might need a new pair of glasses, Shoto brought up, looking at the crooked glasses on Ida's face. Ida blinked, bringing a hand up to his glasses to try and adjust them. Is it that bad? Izuku only answered when a tiny screw fell into Ida's hand. He chuckled a bit when Tenya looked so shocked to see it fall into his palm. Tenchan, you might need to carry around extra pairs of glasses. That is an excellent point. It would be more efficient, Ida said, trailing behind Nedzu into the nurse's office with his friends next to him. And then you began to carry, what? 5 extra pairs with you in all times? Shoto questioned, eyeing the cookie on the plate while Izuku was still on his second one. Izuku smiled teasingly, I would say more like 10, in each pocket. It is not like that. Tenya argued back. I don't carry that many glasses anymore. Izuku stared at Tenya, locking eye contact with him. He waited for a moment before bringing out his master move that always worked on his childhood friends, Tenchan. Ooh, a childhood nickname. Oh, Shoto whispered. Tenya stood his ground for a moment before sighing heavily. I only carry 3 pairs on hand now, but I do keep at least 20 pairs in my bedroom and an emergency pair in my backpack. Oh, I was closer to you. I win, Shoto commented. Izuku raised an eyebrow. What are you exactly winning? Shoto met his eyes with an unimpressed expression. He didn't break eye contact as he slowly took the last cookie from the plate. But remember when we actually started our official training? We were like around 9 when it actually started to get serious, Tenya brought up, letting the others reminisce about their past. It was when they were older when it eventually happened. They all still wanted to be heroes that made a difference in the world. So from when they were 9 to when it was time for the entrance exams, they were trained by some of the best heroes. So they each had time to train together and separately. Tenya got taught by his brother mostly when he got off of patrol, using the school's track to race with him to help with his endurance. He even told him about a certain power boost that he could start when he was ready. Shoto also got taught by his brother on how to control his fire better. His mother helped guide him with his ice, advising him to use more of ice sculpting techniques to create weapons out of the ice using his fire to melt it down to what he wanted. His sister gave advice about how to gain better control by remaining calmer since she noticed his quirk flares up when too many emotions overpower him. Fuyumi introduced him to ice skating, which was a perfect way to gain a better balance of his quirk. Shoto learned how to skate on his own ice, which provided a good advantage to him when he needed it. Natsuo didn't have much to add, but he did teach Shoto the basics of first aid. Izuku had very specific training along with teachings. Uncle Mike taught him close combat since he excelled in that when he wasn't fighting long range with his quirk. Aunt Namuri taught him more about the art of fighting by mixing certain techniques from dancing. He took dance lessons to improve balance and flexibility. Uncle Aizawa taught him all about stealth, martial arts, and parkour moves like jumping from roof to roof using support item if needed to help him out. Izuku still remembers the day when he was 10 that he decided he wanted to try and master his uncle's capture weapon, only to be hung upside from the tree by the weapon while his uncle watched him. And he learned how to hotwire objects like cars to the entrance exam robots from Power Loader. And his papa didn't hold back with his lessons since he knew Izuku's limits. Izuku learned how to hack into phones, computers, tablets, and he was currently working on how to break into a full database. Nedzu always gathered practices to give Izuku to test how he would deal with each problem. And with each problem given, Izuku gave several solutions on what to do that all depended on who and what was near him. Izuku was taught how to utilize many techniques on how to fool enemies by manipulation, whether it be my emotions or in more threatening ways. Izuku kept up with his analysis, going into even more detail on heroes and villains while writing in his own custom code that only he and his father can translate. And together, they would train in mock battles in the gym with Cementos helping them with different layouts. Uncle Aizawa would teach all of them how to fight using their quirk to their full potential. He also made each one of them fight him all out separately at least once a month to allow them that time to improve and come back stronger for the next time. Uncle Mike was teaching all for them to sign language in English. And then the three will do one-on-one battles with each other with no quirks to gain experience and learn from each fight on what to get better at. If they were too predictable in their fighting, they were told by the other two and they would solve the issue together. Well, I'm glad that we each had our own training. And since we don't know anything still about the training grounds, we will be on the same level as our future classmates, Tenya said happily, drinking his orange juice calmly. In fact, I can't wait to see what happens in our first year. Don't jinx it, Shoto warned, coughing a bit, which made Izuku hand him a glass of milk. Tenya spoke up, leaning back on his palms to relax back into the sedan of Shoto's mattress. What are you excited for? I can just imagine you are waiting for when everyone finds out that you are Nedzu's son. He. Yes, that is going to be the best, Izuku laughed loudly. When that happens, can one of you record their expressions? I want to remember the day I strike some fear into my classmates. Shoto raised a brow at his friend. You say that like you aren't going to do it on a regular basis. Hey, Izuku started to protest only to shrug at his words. Not that far off, but still. I wouldn't scare them on a daily basis. I'm aiming for more of one big weekly freakout if I can. Tenya turned to Izuku like he was going to lecture him about not scaring their future peers before settling on asking, are we talking about air vent surprises or crawling through windows? You will have to see. I'm not spoiling the surprises, Izuku grinned mischievously. It was a slow night for Present Mike on his radio show. He played some underrated artists who he thought deserved some more attention. It was just a nice Saturday since just yesterday night was his non-stop broadcast for Put Your Hands Up Radio. When he had time, he would do a Saturday night shift to just relax with some music that he loved at the moment. Sometimes the radio or his own hero page on social media would get recommendations for music or young artists wishing to reach out to have their own songs out on the radio. Hizashi did his best to highlight the underrated artists he would find by himself or the ones that reached out to him. Alright, listeners. That was from a rising artist called Anya. Give it up to her, everyone. Hizashi announced, pressing down on one of the buttons on the soundboard. Hizashi clapped along with the fake applause from the button he just pressed. Whoa! And for right now, I'm going to fill up more of the queue for the hour with more from artists that deserve the spotlight. Let's go into a new song by an artist that has been previously in this segment which earned them more support. Give it up to Kyo. After he said that, Mike blasted the more upbeat sound over the speakers. Sighing, he pulled off the headphones from his ears to around his neck. He scratched at his blonde hair that was hanging loosely over his shoulders as opposed to the upright position he constantly styles it in. It was a miracle that his hair wasn't damaged from the sheer amount of product he used. Tap, tap, tap. Hisashi paused with his hand in the middle of playing with the ends of his hair to look up to the glass window behind him. He straightened up with a smile when he saw that it was Izuku looking right back at him with his freckled cheeks smushed against the glass. Come on! Hisashi encouraged with a cheerful grin, waving the young teen in. Izuku hurried around the window to find the door to the room where Hisashi was in. In under 30 seconds, Izuku was coming through the door with an assistant at the radio station who closed the door behind him. Hey, Uncle Mike. I just thought I'd stop by. Hisashi stood up from his chair to pull Izuku into a hug. Izuku smiled after they pulled away to sit in a guest chair near Hisashi that had its own microphone. The microphone was positioned perfectly in front of him just like Mick's own mic. This will be your last radio show before you head off to UA. Are you ready for that, little listener? I was born ready for it, Izuku answered back, leaning back in his chair so he could adjust the height to relax better against the table. And does that mean DJ Mouse is ready to have his last show before UA too? DJ Mouse has been his alias in the radio station since he didn't want his name out there in the public so soon. Izuku started his radio alias back when he was around 10 when President Mike was watching over him one Saturday night. Izuku walked into the radio station when Mike started to talk to his fans through submitted questions. He proudly walked into the station when one of the questions turned out to be more of criticism towards Mike always being too loud for him, which caused Izuku to become super defensive of his uncle. Then more questions were submitted when everyone on the radio heard a small boy's voice call out, "Don't talk about Uncle Mike that way." Upon that spectacular first introduction, President Mike introduces him as DJ Mouse. Safe to say, DJ Mouse gained a lot of support through social media with a lot of fans speculating about who he might be. There was even one fan theory that DJ Mouse was President Mick's son, and ever since then, Izuku would show up randomly on Saturday nights when President Mike was doing a show to come in and talk. He would chat about quirks he found interesting, answer simple questions from fans that didn't dig into his personal life that much, and just have a good time for about an hour. And tonight was one of those nights. Hisashi pasted the headphones back on his head. He turned down the volume of the instrumental music mix to talk over it. Alright, listeners. Welcome back to the show. And we have an unsuspected special guest with us tonight. Yours and my favorite guest, DJ Mouse. Hello, Izuku greeted into the microphone. Happy to be here again. Alright. Hisashi exclaimed loudly, leaning away from the microphone to not hurt any ears that might be listening in. How are you doing tonight, Mouse? Not too bad, Izuku shrugged. I'm getting ready for the new upcoming school year. I got some new stationery, notebooks, and a brand new backpack. President Mike nodded, yes. I heard that you are starting relatively soon. Would you want the audience to know where you're heading, or do you want to keep it a secret? Well, if anyone wanted to know, I will be attending a hero school. I'm not telling any of you which one yet, Izuku chuckled. But I know that won't stop any of you from guessing and theorizing. I do love the fan theories about me that all of you post on the online forums. Speaking of hero schools, let's focus on heroes for a moment because I want to know about your opinion on the fight that took place near Ditako. Oh, you mean the one with Hawks, the number 3 himself? I enjoyed it quite immensely. Too bad I wasn't there to see it in real life, but I did read about it online. I was watching a few short clips that I could find online about it. It looked like quite a fight between him and a robber with a bird-like quirk. It was interesting to watch how the robber's talons worked, Izuku rambled while his uncle listened with a chin propped on his hand. It was very interesting because it looked like his talons just kept growing bigger and bigger. When Hawks managed to cut off one, it grew back within seconds. But the nails got duller and duller each time Hawks strikes the talons in his hands. Imagine my surprise when the robber took off his shoes to start kicking at him with a whole new set of talons on his feet. Hawk's expression was hilarious. It went from a smirk to an expression that just read, "Oh, not again." Before I forget, good job Hawks. I look forward to seeing more of you. Hisashi smiled at his nephew, I can't wait to see you interact with him. I feel like you will be nicknaming him before he can even introduce himself. Izuku blinked up at his uncle innocently. Oh, he will have his nickname before I even meet him. You can bet on that. Nedzu smiled as he continued to listen to present Mick's radio show even if it was almost done. His peaceful smile dimmed as he looked down at the file on his dark wooden desk. The name on one of the files taunted him as the dark black eyes from the picture stared right into his soul. Midoriya Hisashi. Izuku's biological father abandoned him at the gates of UA 15 years ago. Sometimes Nedzu would check in on what Midoriya-san was doing. He checks every 6 months to a year regularly to make sure that nothing bad was happening. He wanted to be assured that Izuku's biological father wouldn't try to get revenge on him or try and hurt Izuku. He continues to look over the file to check over any updates he could find. He was released from jail when Izuku was 5 and has not made a move towards him at all. But Nedzu still liked to check in just in case every now and then. Some might call it him being paranoid, but Nedzu likes to think of it as him preparing for the future. There haven't been many records of him since then. He got a few odd jobs afterward that allowed him in despite his criminal charge. But Nedzu learned that he lost his job at a factory about 8 months ago. Nedzu looked over the mugshot photo, remembering what Tsukachi had told him about the interrogation. The detective brought the news that he looked so resigned. He also mentioned how his face relaxed when one of the officers admitted that Izuku was now in the hands of someone who would take care of him. That was the one thing that bugged him. If he was so relieved to hear that his own son was safe, then why did he abandon him in the first place? Humans are so complicated, Papa. Izuku's voice calls out loudly before he hears the front door close lightly. He hears the shuffling of Izuku taking off his shoes while he hid away the files of his biological father in his desk. Little mouse, Nedzu called out softly from his bedroom. He adjusted the height of his chair to land on the carpeted floor softly. I listened to the radio show while I worked on some papers. That's great to hear. Ooh, Uncle Mike wanted to talk to you about a possible opportunity for when I start UA. I don't know what exactly it's about, but it has something to do with the radio station, Izuku said, looking through the cabinets to find something to eat. Nedzu nodded, thinking over what Mike would ask him about in his head. Sounds excellent. I'll talk to him over the phone either tomorrow or Monday to talk it over. Hey, did you eat yet? I drank some tea. I'll admit that I have not eaten since my late lunch today. Do you want me to order something for dinner? It's a bit late in the night to be cooking, but it is still an option, Izuku asked with a hand propped under his chin as he thought over it. What are you in the mood for? I can go for anything. Surprise me, Nedzu hummed. Izuku pulled up the food delivery app on his phone while Nedzu walked to the couch. After Izuku ordered from the app, both of them sat down to watch one of those detective shows on the television. About halfway through the show, Nedzu paused the show to allow Izuku to go downstairs to retrieve the food from the delivery guy waiting. It didn't take long until Izuku was back through the front door with 2 bags of food on his arms. They ordered dinner from a nice restaurant that had a lot of influences from other places like Europe and other places in Asia. Izuku looked up from his grilled chicken piece. Hey, Papa. Are you going to do that reference game to my classmates? Nedzu ate from his bowl of rice noodles. Of course I will. I need to know if any of them are interested in certain genres. I need to know if they are educated in the pre-Quark era of movies. And if they aren't, you can educate them. I sure will. If they don't know anything and they want to learn, I'll be there for them if they accept my help. Izuku looked away for a moment. I wonder what my new classmates will be like. Nedzu tilted his head curiously. What do you want them to be? Well, I would like to not have any true enemies in my class. I want to be a friend that helps them out. I want to be a future ally to them, whether it be for support for personal issues or an actual villain fight. That's all I really want, Izuku answered honestly. Then, don't let anything stop you. Nedzu looked down at his food as he continued. I don't doubt that you will win over everyone. If they don't like you, it will only be a matter of time before they warm up to you. And if they continue to not like you, you annoy them whenever you get the chance. Izuku frowned. Are you speaking from experience? Nedzu looked up. I just love to see how much I can mildly annoy the Hero Commission in any way possible without it looking like I'm doing it intentionally. It was only a week before classes had to begin and UA had its faculty called into a meeting to discuss any issues or topics they had to tackle. The faculty members were discussing amongst each other about what they had planned for their students. Power Loader was talking about a simultaneous good and bad feeling about a girl named Hatsume that was going to be in his class this year. She calls her inventions her babies when she showed off the items to me. She had so many of them, Power Loader commented while slumping badly against his chair. I feel like I will have my hands full this year. Any other news regarding students? Midnight interrupted, hey, Vlad. You got anyone in your class that you think is going to be a troublemaker? Vlad King huffed, my class seems to be very well rounded from what I saw from the entrance exam. I believed I picked wisely. Eraser? Eraser mumbled weakly with his head slumped against his arm. What do you think about your class? You got Izuku in your homeroom. I see some potential in but the first day will truly bring out their potential. Oh, you are doing the quirk assessment thing again? Are you ever going to show up for the welcoming ceremony? It's not needed, Eraserhead replied simply. He adjusted his head to rest in his palm as they all waited for the meeting to start. Plus, Izuku listened to it plenty of times before. If anyone truly wanted to know what happened, Izuku can give them a bullet point list of what Nedzu went over. Since we are speaking of Izuku, is he doing the presentation? Present Mike asks quietly. Eraserhead nods slowly, only when the meeting ends. But yes, he will give a fully prepared presentation. I helped him with some of the ideas. All Might sat at the closest desk to where Nedzu would be presenting with a small notebook open that he was scribbling in. He listened to the others talking while going over the ideas in his notebooks. Okay, so I introduce myself like a normal teacher when I come into the classroom. He was very appreciative of the job offer by Nedzu to teach at HA since it would give him the chance to work more closely with his successor about OFA. But he was teaching hero course to the first years mostly because he was just an amateur with no experience. Nedzu didn't trust him enough with the third years yet until H proved himself to be the greatest teacher. But he will show him that he is great at being a hero and a teacher to the new generation. With that encouraging thought in his head, All Might looked up from his notebook just in time to see Nedzu stroll into the room with a thermos in his hand. Izuku was right behind him with a tablet and his own thermos clutched in his arms. Izuku closed the door softly behind him while Nedzu situated himself at the head chair to face his faculty properly. Alright, let the first meeting of the incoming school year commence. He announced joyfully as the teachers prepared their folders to report what they have planned so far. All Might looked around at everyone before flipping through his notebook to land on a certain page filled with unintelligible scribbles that he had for his scheduled class time. Izuku glanced over at his paper with a worked look. He might want to help All Might out with making his class plans more clear. So one by one, the teachers answered Nedzu's checklist questions about what they had ready for the classes. Power Loader had his lab all set up, but he was going to get more material for the students to work with the next day so they can get started sooner than later. Ectoplasm was ready to go with all his mathematic lessons planned out for the year, all prepared in a neat planner that he decorated with star stickers for fun. Midnight has all her modern art classes outlined, but not fully planned out yet. She picked out all the art mediums she wants for the students to know, and she even has a fashion course planned. Snipe had an idea for some Western to mix into his class, and he said that there wasn't much he had to do since he has the classes basically outlined for the lessons. Mike had his English plans for teachings all lined up for each day with enough room to move around things if needed. He was very excited to share his idea of an extra credit assignment that is to memorize an English song. Aizawa was straight to the point with most of his classes going his own way to help them achieve their potential. Cementos and 13 shared that they had all of their plans completed for the most part. When it was All Might's turn, Aizawa raised a pun eyebrow to how he was surprised that he had to plan for about a month ahead since he only had 2 weeks planned out so far. Izuku got All Might's attention when he finished, Uncle Might, I can help you out if you want on your schedule if you need it. 13 offered, All Might if you really need help, I have no problem with it. My lesson plan is already prepared, so I have no trouble helping you out. Thank you. But All Might started to reassure her that he was fine. He would appreciate it very much since he is still new at teaching. Nedzu interrupted All Might to reply to 13. All Might gratefully nod back at the space hero before turning his attention back to the principal. Okay, now that everything is settled amongst our faculty, Izuku has something to share with us that he has been working on for quite a while. Everything presented will help us improve the school, so your thoughts will be needed, Nedzu announced to the rest of the faculty. Aizawa hid his knowing smile under his capture scarf as Izuku fiddled with the tablet to display his screen for everyone to see. Izuku prepared a lot of ideas that we will discuss on possibly implementing in the future. Okay, I'm ready, Izuku mumbled, standing up from his chair. He momentarily paused before he walked over to the front of the table behind his father to stand next to the displayed screen. Okay. Hi. I noticed there are some things that could be changed, so I wrote down all of the ideas that I will now show you. I focused mainly on the entrance exam since we all noticed that it leans more towards flashy quirks. So yeah, I have gathered a lot of ideas that can help us change the entrance exam to be more inclusive towards other quirks and other people as well. If you have any suggestions or feedback about anything, they will help out greatly. If you have any questions, please speak up so we can further go into a discussion about it. Izuku glanced over at Nedzu, who waved at him with his paw to continue. Okay, I'll start now. The main topic to about is the entrance exam and what can be done about it hopefully in the future. I researched quite a bit about different things that could be helpful to implement or a completely different way to how the exam is as a whole. The goal is to have a mostly, if not all, inclusive exam to help out any future hero in the making. Izuku turned to the screen to show off the title screen, which had the basic layout map of the entrance exam with the 4 robots listed. The first option is an escape room type exam with a goal to rescue hostage, Izuku explained, flipping to the next slide, which showed a sketched out building with rooms highlighted on different floors. It had drawings of locks, keys, and papers around the surrounding bullet points that explained what it was. They will navigate the city looking for clues available through evidence as well hidden. There will be several buildings set up with the room layout different each time, so they start at the bottom and work their way to the top. They will have to find clues to go to their next room to save the hostage at the end. This is a unique exam, but not many people are good at these types of games, Ectoplasm commented. Vlad King leaned back in his chair. This is a pretty interesting idea. I feel like Izuku can do this in like 10 minutes. Midnight muttered to Mike, who nodded back at her. It won't work for everyone. It would work better for the participants with more intelligence though. It centers more on stealth quirks who can gain the needed information quickly, Aizawa said. But it will show off the potential of how people can work in this kind of situation. It's more similar to a scene that underground heroes have to face more than heroes like All Might. What happens if they run out of time? Snipe piped up from the opposite end of the table. He swiveled around his iced tea in his thermos as he stared at the screen thoughtfully. I don't know if most of them will finish in under 20 or 30 minutes. Heck, last time I tried to do an escape room I wasn't even close before the timer ran out. Izuku flipped to the next slide, which showed a grade scale for the first option, then you grade based on what they did during that time wisely. Like if one participant chooses to just go straight to the top using their quirk without knowing the situation, major points will be taken away. If they don't finish, then their work and skills that they have shown at that time will be graded on how well they did. Even if they win, their turn will still be looked at to make sure there wasn't anything like only one person doing the work while the others in the room goof around. Cementos politely spoke up. I think this does have the potential to have a lot of people working together for the greater good, and it can also show right away who doesn't work well with others. In a situation like these, any mistake could cost someone their life. What the next one? Nedzu asked with a calm smile as his eyes stopped scanning the sketched out blueprints Izuku had drawn. Now, the next option is to have 2 separate exams for the physical portion. This will be something like having a more combat-based exam with robots as we have now. But the other exam will be more rescue and or investigation based on the more mental quirks or quirks that don't work well against robots. The combat exam will still have the secret rescue points if the participants choose to save other peers. The rescue exam is more based on saving civilian bots or mannequins. I wouldn't put live actors in there so soon since it is only the entrance exam. Would that mean students choose or that we place them in their exams based on what their quirk is? The decisions will be more based on what major group their quirks are in. More combat or physical in number 1 and the more mental or less offensive quirks in the second one. Besides quirks, also any fighting experience will decide as well. If they have a tail but they have martial arts experience, they will be considered for the first one. This is mostly to help those whose quirks don't work well with robots. Very considerate, 13 states as they looked at the screen. On the screen, the slide was an image similar to the entrance exam they already had next to another image that had more civilians mannequins trapped under small rubble. The final option is one that has designated areas with bad guys that the participants need to take down. Each place will be either more combat-based, information-gathering-based, and rescue-based. So people who want a rescue can go for the villain robbing a store with hostages. The person who wants the combat will go after the one wreaking havoc in another part of town. This is up for the applicant to decide where to prove themselves. They will have options ranging from fighting with smaller robots minions for the combat-based villain to rescuing civilian bots from the hostage situation. Civilian bots will be scattered around the city, so this would be the tie to see if any of the participants are shown to not care about who gets hurt. Placing civilian bots around the cities will help weed out the people that are shown to use excessive force and damage and how they treat the civilians around them. Then at the 5-minute mark, there will be some kind of small disaster that is enough to knock participants around. It won't be super big, but it will range from area to area. The disasters would include something like exploding fire hydrants that erupt into a geyser of water, small fires, small tremors in the ground, and other things. This will show who acts well under pressure and who needs a bit of help under crisis. This idea is the best out of 3. Nedzu hummed before turning to Izuku. Anything else to add? This idea is great. Anything else to add? Izuku smiled. I do have some other ideas, but they aren't for the physical entrance exam. This is more written based. Let's hear them. Nedzu exclaimed. Well, I was thinking of some ideas for more of the written part of the entrance exam. Maybe some questions to decide where exactly their morality leans toward. Like what their true intention of being a hero is or what they think of others that have been discriminated against. The main question I want to put on there is a classic moral test between who do you choose to save. Izuku paused to collect his breath. For example, there is a villain surrounded by a crowd with 2 other pro-heroes that are taking care of them. They are locked in a fight with the media and crowd watching them trying to take down the villain. But there is a civilian being robbed with a weapon in a close alleyway where no one else is paying attention. Who do you choose to help? The heroes fighting the villain or the civilian that is being mugged? It's all made to see what would they go for. Would they go for the villain to get more recognition or would they save an unknown person's life? That would be an excellent addition to the written exams. I'll keep a note of that, Nedzu commented, turning back to the long table to face the other teachers. Anyone else likes to discuss or add anything before I close the meeting for today? The teachers shook their heads while Mike and Midnight excitedly gave Izuku a thumbs up for his presentation. And with that, Nedzu ended the faculty meeting. On the way out, the staff congratulated Izuku on his ideas for the entrance exam. Aizawa patted his head of curls when the others weren't looking. Even if he went over the presentation before with Izuku, he was still impressed by the work Izuku accomplished, especially since he could help with the ideas based on his experience with it. All Might excuses himself to go catch a train to Sir Nightie's agency. Izuku assumes it was for either the class schedule or because of Mirio. Present Mike stayed behind after everyone to give him some exciting news. What is it? Don't worry, little listener. I asked permission before asking you about this. You know how DJ Mouse is a hit with the fans? Yes? Well, the fans have been wondering when you would get a show of your own. What do you think of that? What? A radio show? Well, I will still be there, but what they really want is more of you. So I was thinking of having a more DJ Mouse Central show about once a week or something if you have the time for it, that is. It will only be an hour, and I already discussed it with Principal Nedzu about dropping you off if necessary. So what do you think? Izuku ran through all the thoughts in his head, ranging from the fan theories all the way to his school schedule. He was starting actual school soon that was going to be totally different from homeschooling. With a smile, Izuku accepted the offer. Oh, Uncle Mike was going to regret this decision. Long after the meeting, Nedzu was working in his office while Izuku was scribbling down his late design for his hero outfit. He was scribbling down in his notebook in his own little hiding space. The hiding space was what Izuku nicknamed a small room that Nedzu had installed in his office if there was a need for a private small space that no one knew about. If it was needed for a situation like villains breaking into a smaller situation when he just wanted to be alone. The small space was sneakily hidden away at the back of the closet in Nedzu's office behind a disguised door that looks exactly like the drywall inside the closet. It was perfectly tucked away and no one but he and Nedzu knew about its location. It was a small crawl space that led to a secret room that was big enough for Izuku to sit up with no problems with hitting his head against the ceiling. The room had a fluffy rug that decorated the floor. There were 2 small beanbag chairs with throw pillows placed on them. The beanbag chairs had a large stuffed bunny whose arms were wrapped around a coiled blanket. So if there was ever a need for him to ask a nap, he would be prepared. And the whole room had fairy lights that hung down to provide dim lighting. Izuku scribbled away at his design with a small battery-powered lamp near him to help him see the notebook pages better. He wanted his outfit to hold influences of the people he looked up to the most. He didn't want to wear a suit or tuxedo because it wouldn't provide the flexible stretch he would need. He drew out the capture weapon his uncle always uses around his sketch's neck. He was more skilled at using the captured weapon now, so it would be a great help to him. Another item he added was a visor-style pair of glasses that was the same color as present Nick's headphones. He envisioned for the visor to help him out a lot, but he could wait until he gets an upgrade for what he truly wanted. For now, he would be satisfied with a regular visor. For Midnight, his hero belt is reminiscent of hers in style. The belt had pockets and compartments on the sides to hold a taser, pepper spray, a knife, and a retractable staff. For Ingenium, he already had his jetpack, which looked like Ingenium's hero outfit. The jetpack also had pockets for any bigger items that he needed, like flashbangs, smoke bombs, and first aid supplies. And to represent his father, he had his hood designed to have ears that looked just like Nedzu's own ears. The hood itself was a grayish-white that really stood out against his green hair. The main color of his whole hero outfit was a mostly gray and black color scheme with traces of color like red in his belt and shoes. There was also the pops of color like gold in his belt and light blue with his visor. And his capture weapon was designed most white than Eraserhead's own. With one last detail, Izuku was finished with his hero design, and he couldn't wait to try it on once it's finished. Izuku fumbled with the last shot. He aimed towards the target, making the arrow veer off even more towards the right than his last attempt. "Alright," Snipe said. Izuku looked down to see all the arrows decorating the grass around the target with none of them actually on it. Snipe whistled at the fallen arrows while Izuku groaned. "Welp, it looks like you still need a bit more practice with the bow and arrow before I let you hold a gun." Izuku looked down at his bow and arrow before looking up at Snipe. "Why can't I just train with a gun instead? First, your dad will plan my death if you even get a scratch under my care. I hate to see what he does to me if you get some kind of wound from a gun backfiring on you or worse," Snipe retorted, his shoulders shivering a bit when he thought of what Nedzu might do to him with an incident like that ever were to happen. "And secondly, the whole point of this is for you to learn how to aim, so when you do try with a gun it will be much easier for you to pick up on." "Can't argue with your logic on that. I guess I just need to practice more. I'll get the hang of it sooner than later," Izuku answered back, rubbing his thumb against the smooth wood of the bow. Izuku took Snipe's offer to help him learn how to deal with more advanced weaponry like guns in comparison to his smoke bombs and pepper spray. He originally thought he would just go straight to the shooting range and learn from there, but Snipe was taking it slow with him by teaching him the basics of the bow and arrow. So Snipe took him outside the UA building to one of the training areas for his first lesson. After finishing up, Snipe led him back to the UA building with a reminder to practice more training exercises to help with his archery. Izuku nodded back to him before he heading off to the faculty lounge. "Ah, young Izuku. How nice to see you." Izuku turned around at the familiar voice to see All Might in his lankier form. "Hello, Uncle Toshi. You took your vitamins today, right?" "I did," Toshinori smiled proudly. "How are you?" "How is training?" "I'm okay. It will take me a while to practice archery to perfection. But I won't give up when it could help me in the future." Izuku breathed out. "How is training with Mirio?" "It's going great. I am meeting Mirai and Mirio on a beach to finish up our summer training. Mirio has taken care of almost all of the beach already, but I would like to extend the invitation to you," Toshinori offered. Izuku looked confused. He tilted his head at the offer. "Why do you want me to come? Would I be more of a nuisance since this is Mirio's training to take on, you know, the successor quirk thing?" "No. Not at all. Young Mirio wanted to invite you to show you what it was like on the beach. He has previously invited young Tamaki and Nijire to show them the beach as well," Toshinori explained. "It's just to clean up the beach, right?" "Ah, sure. It shouldn't be a problem then," Izuku grinned. "I'll just help out Mirio-senpai with cleaning up some litter left on the beach." What's the worst that could happen? Toshinori smiled gratefully before Izuku turned around to inform Nedzu about the outing he was about to take. He was proud that Mirio was taking on All Might's quirk just cause of how hard he had worked to perfect his quirk over the years he spent at UA. Izuku still remembers the first time he met Mirio when he was the first year at UA, back when he was only 12. Izuku was walking to Ectoplasm's math class to check in on what he was doing. He made it a habit to check in on the teachers only when they had the time and weren't too busy. He checks on him while his class was working on group projects to see how he was doing and if he needed any coffee from the faculty lounge. Ectoplasm said no, but they did engage in a conversation about the latest movie that came out that didn't hold a candle to the original. Time seemed to pass quickly as Izuku analyzed what they could have done better with the lackluster storyline while Ectoplasm was nodding his head in agreement. One of the students nodded at what he said while they were in their group before their group members got them back on track. After that, Izuku took his leave to not distract Ectoplasm for too long. He was walking down the hallway to get back to the faculty office to hopefully make a new batch of coffee for the other teachers since Aizawa would have drunk a whole pot by now. But while Izuku was so deep in his thoughts about making a vanilla brew, a student fell through the wall leading to the outside training area. Now, Izuku has seen a lot of people thump against the wall before. They would be too sleepy from the night before and end up knocking their head against the hard wall. And he has seen others that have accidentally knocked down the wall from either the support course that blew up their invention or a hero course student whose quirk misfires. But he has never seen a student go through the wall with no damage at all. Izuku noticed that there was no even a singular hole in the wall, yet a hero course student was standing in front of him, and he was naked. He blocked his eyes with his hands as the student cursed silently to himself before hiding his private area from Izuku. "Oh, hello," the male's voice greeted him. Izuku peeked out from his hands to look at the top half of the student in front of him. The taller boy had blonde hair that sticks up from his head and blue eyes that looked sheepish. "I'm sorry that you had to see my willy, Izuku blinked, desperately trying not to look down. "Was that your quirk?" They answered back with a smile. "Yes, it is. My quirk is permeation. It allows me to pass through any tangible matter like walls and the ground." Izuku's eyes seemed to sparkle. He could already feel his mind filling with analyzing thoughts about how useful permeation would be and how he could work on it to beat Mirio in a fight. He would need to learn more about it. "My name is Tagata Mirio. And I'm technically your senpai since you look a bit young." The other then paused as they remembered that they were the first year. "Hey, don't you look a little bit too young to be a high school student?" "Yes, I do," he nodded back at Mirio. "I'm not a student here officially, but I am aiming for it in like 3 years. Tagata cleared his throat. "Then, if you don't mind me asking, why are you here? Are you a teacher's kid? Or do you need my help to guide you somewhere?" "Well, yes and no. Yes, I am the kid of someone here, but I'm not a teacher's son. But all of the teachers here are part of my family in some way or another." Mirio hummed, then. "Ah, young Tagata, I see you have met Izuku when you fell through the wall." Vlad King spoke up as he walked towards the two. Izuku straightened up when he saw the familiar face approaching. "Yes, I did, sensei." "Ha, I can't believe you have met Nedzu's son already." Mirio blinked twice at the new information that Vlad King had spilled. He looked down to see Izuku, who was calmly watching his expression change with a grin. Izuku joked, "Am I a teacher's son, a runaway middle schooler, or a secret pile of mice in a human disguise?" "Just kidding. I'm the principal's son. Just call me Izuku." Tagata was still currently freaking out on the inside while he kept his smile up on the outside. "Ah, that makes sense. Well, Tagata, Tamaki is holding onto your clothes outside when you finally come back to class," Vlad King said, turning back down the hallway before he moved his head to address Izuku. "It was nice seeing you here, Izuku, but you might want to make it back to the faculty lounge before lunch starts." The first-year student waved to the newly introduced principal's son as he started to head back towards the wall from which he came. "Well, it was nice to meet you, Izuku." "Nice to meet you too, Mirio-senpai." Izuku nodded with a calming smile, similar to who Nedzu's smile was during the entrance ceremony. With a wave, Mirio was through the wall and back outside to finish up in his class. And so, Izuku continued on his way to the lounge to make a vanilla brew of coffee and wait until lunchtime to see what new recipe that Lunch Rush wants him to try out. After his encounter with Mirio, Izuku met Tamaki officially during the first-year sports festival. It was right after the obstacle course event with Mirio stripping down live to use his quirk. Izuku was walking fast through the halls to get to a vending machine to get Uncle Mike a soda drink, and that's when Izuku ran into Tamaki literally. His face connected with the slender chest of a dark-haired boy carrying the top half of the UA training uniform. The blue and white shirt laid across his shaking arms as he mumbled his apologies to Izuku. "It's okay. I'm guessing you are trying to find Mirio-senpai? How did you know?" "I noticed that he grabbed his pants, but he left his shirt behind and then you picked it up," Izuku answered back, glancing down at the larger shirt that the other had in his arms. "You are Tamaki, right?" Tamaki nodded quickly, looking away from him to face the wall instead. "Mirio-senpai is in waiting room 2. Good luck with the rest of the sports festival, Tamaki-senpai." Izuku smiled before walking past him with a wave. Tamaki froze up, turning red before running to where the waiting rooms were. Shortly after that short interaction, Izuku went back up to the announcer booth to give Uncle Hizashi a much-needed drink before the cavalry race started. He watched from the booth while Tamaki and Mirio teamed up with a blue-haired girl. From that point on, he would run into Mirio and Tamaki a lot. He would see Nijire sometimes, but it was mostly if he took the vents somewhere. It was like clockwork how he would pop out of a vent and Nijire would be somewhere near the vent when it happened. When it did, she would talk his ear off about questions she had. There was one time where Mirio had suddenly shifted into Nedzu's office accidentally while he was on the floor above them. His nude body just collapsed into the middle of the floor, catching himself before he went through the floor again. Nedzu barely glanced up from his desk to greet Mirio, who apologized for interrupting. Izuku gave him a short wave while he continued to work in the psychology textbooks that Hound Dog had lent to him. He has barely known Mirio-senpai for a few months, and he had already seen his nether regions way too much. But it was to be expected because of his quirk. And Tamaki was already nearby because he was searching for him to give him back his clothes to change into, and then, time passed. In Mirio's second year, Sir Night-Eye was visiting Izuku and Nedzu to inform them of how All Might was doing when he noticed Mirio training his quirk. Izuku perked up when he noticed Night-Eye's gaze drift toward him. He rambled to Night-Eye about Mirio-senpai and how amazing his quirk was. Mirai took an interest since he saw potential in the way he seemed to determined to overcome the struggles that he still faced with his quirk, so Night-Eye took Mirio under his wing after that day. Izuku knew that Night-Eye noticed how Mirio could be a successor for All Might for when he retires just from the way that Mirio reminded Mirai of him. It was obvious, but Izuku became protective over his senpai figure over the past year that he has known him. So he made sure that Night-Eye had the best intentions with him. He did want Mirio to stress over having to fill the role of the symbol of peace. He didn't want Mirio to replace All Might, he just wanted Mirio to become what he wanted. He wanted to see him become Lemillion. Night-Eye understood Izuku's point after a long talk with him. He continued to help Mirio with his quirk and help him further implement his intelligence into planning strategies using his quirk. And now, Mirio is going into his third year while Izuku is going into his first year. And from what Izuku has heard, Mirio has made record time in cleaning up the trash beach. So hopefully, Izuku can pith in his help to declutter the beach. He has already been through a lot of training, so cleaning up a beach sounds easy. Oh god, I'm dying. This is what it feels like. When did I agree to this American dream plan? I thought I was picking up soda bottles, not soda machines, Izuku muttered as he steadily took in deep breaths. He looked up to find Mirai leaning back as he watched Mirio and his work on the beach. Night-Eye, help me. Mirai shrugged as the sound of Toshinori's encouraging voice towards Mirio to try and pick up a large cabinet was in the background. You did this to yourself. You have no one to blame but yourself. I thought with all of my training that I would be fine while dealing with the heavier stuff I spotted on the beach, but it didn't help that much. I think I should add some weightlifting to my training. Izuku sighed, not noticing how the background noise has quieted down. All of this trash. And exercise. Trash, right? Mirio said as he popped his face out of an old fridge right by Izuku's head. Izuku yelped at the surprise as his upperclassman chuckled at his expression. Mirio popped his head back out of the fridge door and slapped Izuku on the back as he tugged two fridges behind him. One was the normal-sized one he used to scare Izuku with, and the other was a mini fridge decorated with half-scraped-off stickers. Hey, at least he isn't struggling. Mirio looks to be ready to take on the power sooner than I thought, Izuku said to Night-Eye, who nodded his head. Night-Eye responded, Mirio has been working hard on his quirk to a point of perfection, and now with one for all, he will have a large power boost. I have no doubt he will do great things. Izuku nodded back with a smile. I can imagine that Lemillion won't be just a second coming of All Might. He would be even better. But I can see him being a symbol of peace or hope. Ooh, what happens if there was more than one symbol? Mirai raised his eyebrows. Oh, I'm just rambling here. But what if there were multiple symbols so there wouldn't be any more of the kind of stuff that All Might went through? With multiple symbols, everyone won't just be relying on one person to take care of everything. There could be like the symbol of peace, hope, justice, victory, love, and... I'm not getting ahead of myself, am I? Izuku asked, cutting himself off from mumble ranting. Mirai slowly shook his head. No, Izuku. I'm quite intrigued by your thought. Who would be the other symbols as of right now? Do you have an idea of who can fit into those titles? Not any concrete idea. If there was a symbol of wisdom, then my dad or you would fit. But as for right now, I don't see any outstanding pro heroes as of yet. Mirio would be an amazing symbol of hope though when he officially graduates. Izuku praised Mirio right as they were walking up behind him. Ah, that's so sweet of my kohai to say. Mirio proudly said, lifting a microwave covered in wires into his arms. Izuku smiled back at his older friend before looking down at what he could bring up to the awaiting pickup truck that was almost filled with the junk that Mirio carried up to it. Maybe he could find another broken kitchen appliance. Hey! Hey! What do you think you're doing? Those materials could be used for my babies. Tashinori coughed harshly at the sudden declaration from out of nowhere. Mirio dropped the microwave that was in his hands just and it fell onto the hot sand. Mirai looked up unimpressed as a pink-haired girl rushed out onto the beach to swoop up the microwave covered in the tangled wires. Izuku blinked at her. Hello. The girl looked up from the wire-wrapped microwave in her arms to him and extended her arm out from under the microwave to give him a real strong handshake. Hatsum Mei, one of the best incoming support item inventors in the making. Who are you and why are you taking prime material for my babies from this beach? Mirio tilted his head as he glanced down at the microwave that was still resting in the girl's hands. Babies? Why would you give a microwave to a baby? Izuku asked, very confused as to what was going on. Mirai stifled a small chuckle from the expressions on their faces. Yes. My precious babies that I have made from some of the best material I can find from this trash dump beach before it started to disappear throughout the summer, Mei answered, giving a small glare towards the upperclassmen. I'm guessing that it is your doing that it has been disappearing. Tashinori coughed before answering, well, it isn't disappearing, but we are relocating it to an actual trash dump to renew the beach to what it once was. Ah, that is a good goal to have in mind, but it is a real shame that I won't be getting to make that mechanic suit I was planning with the old fridge doors, Mei sighed. I'll just work with what I got, so I can finish my portfolio to get myself into UA support course. Izuku's ears seemed to perk up as Mei talked. You are thinking about going into UA? And what is this I hear about a mechanic suit? Are you using the fridge doors as the armor around the suit? Mei's eyes zoomed in on him. Yes. Exactly. Well, it is only the prototype design to get the functions right. I will reinforce the armor later when I have the right materials for it. And of course, I'm going to UA. Why? Are you going to? Yes, I plan on taking part in the hero course, but I am very interested in support items and have designed a few of my own. Izuku nodded. Mirai and Tashinori shared a look while Mei and Izuku bounced ideas off of each other. Mirio continued to clean the beach with Izuku helping with more of the smaller items, but Mei told Izuku about certain objects she wanted to use. So Izuku places certain pieces in a small separate pile for Mei to take home. When it came time for Mei to leave, Izuku said, I hope to see you there, Hatsum-chan. Mei grinned back at him excitedly. I better see you there, Green. Izuku continued to wave at her retreating figure until Mirio whispered loudly. Did you even tell her your name? Izuku froze with his hand in the air. I knew I was forgetting something. Izuku didn't notice that something was off. He woke up like usual, brushed his teeth, and got dressed for a regular day of spending time at UA. It wasn't until he got into Nedzu's office that he had a sinking feeling that something was wrong. Nedzu looked up from his desk while he was still setting up his paperwork for that day when he noticed how Izuku looked. Little mouse, is everything alright? Izuku started to nod to reassure his father until he felt an overwhelming urge to take over his body. He put his hands over his mouth and rushed to the restroom. Nedzu called out softly after him, hopping down from his chair to follow him out the office door. Izuku groaned with a cold rag plastered to his forehead. Recovery girl waved off Nedzu's worries. It looks like a mild case of a stomach bug. One of the second-year management students came in a few days ago with it. Izuku must have been exposed to it by accidentally touching something that was contaminated by the student. Sorry. I took his stuff back to his classroom for him because he was resting, Izuku answered, sipping softly from a glass of iced water. He started to chew in the ice from the glass to try to get the lasting taste of bile out of his mouth. He should be better in no time. For now, I would just let him rest in here. I'll limit his solid food intake for the day and monitor how he is. It isn't that severe, Recovery Girl explained. Now, you go on back to your work. I'll keep Izuku safe here. Nedzu nodded at her words, looking back at Izuku who was relaxing against a pillow. Izuku smiled reassuringly, don't worry. I'll be fine here. Go finish your work, Papa. The principal finally left the nurse's office to go back to his own office to begin his work for the day. He is already planning on bringing some soup and tea with honey to Izuku during lunch. After fixing himself in his chair, Nedzu took a look at the work on his desk before his eyes landed on a picture frame. The small picture frame held an image of him and Izuku on the couch with Izuku curled up in a blanket next to him as the television light illuminated the both of them. He smiled, reflecting on the day that picture was taken. The memory of the first time that Izuku ever got sick. The first time Izuku got sick was when he was still very young. He was barely 2 years old when he first caught a cold during the wintertime. Safe to say, Nedzu was feeling a lot of emotions ranging from stressed and worried about whether Izuku would be alright. He went through research only to learn that a cold can lead to other things like pink eye, infections, and breathing problems. So he called Recovery Girl that night to ask what he should do. She explained that he should start by washing both of their hands to avoid spreading any more germs. Then make sure that Izuku gets lots of liquid, so Nedzu started to make some tea with a tiny bit of honey to it. And make sure that Izuku was comfortable by propping his head up with a pillow and placing a cold rag on his forehead to soothe him. And she just gave him some advice to call her or another doctor if the symptoms continue for more than 3 days and keep an eye on his temperature. Any over-the-counter medicines that he had at the moment were useless because Izuku was too young to take them. So Nedzu spent the first night of Izuku being sick with him. He slept on a chair to where Izuku was sleeping on his bed. The next day, Nedzu was watching over him with a close eye, barely leaving his side. He brought his lunch inside the room with him only to step outside into the hallway to eat since Izuku looked a little pouty that Nedzu got to eat katsudon while Izuku was stuck with soup. At the end of the day, he guided Izuku to take an apathetic to help with any congestion he might have. And that night, he slept by his side again, making sure that the rag on his head was still cold to soothe his fever. Izuku never once woke up when Nedzu was changing his rag. He only clutched the custom bear that Namiri had gotten him closer to himself. It was only until the third day that Izuku's fever had lessened. Nedzu was so thankful that Izuku wasn't sick anymore. So on that final day, Nedzu had taken a picture of him and Izuku resting on the couch surrounded by a blanket. After he finished up most of his work, Nedzu prepared a cup of honey tea with 3 lumps of sugar. And he already had Lunch Rush prepare some chicken soup that he picked up on the way to the nurse's office. When Nedzu arrived, Izuku was writing in his notebook. He looked up from his notebook to see a cup and a bowl ready for him in Nedzu's arms. Izuku smiled gratefully, thanking his father for the meal before taking a sip of the warm tea. Ah, that feels so much better. I honestly don't feel that bad. Aha! Don't push yourself, little mouse. I also brought you some chicken soup that Lunch Rush made, but don't eat it if you don't think you can handle it yet. I can always put it aside for later, Nedzu explained to him before he noticed something by Izuku's side. What is that? Oh. Uncle Hizashi came by Recovery Girl earlier and learned that I was sick. So I think he took Aunt Nem and Uncle Zawa with him to go get a plush to wish me a good recovery? Either that or they just had all of these piled up in the faculty office? Izuku replied, holding up 3 plushies. One of them was a cockatoo, another was a bunny with very long ears, and the last one was a black cat with green eyes. Either way, they have been providing me company. I know I might be a little old for stuffed animals, but they are so comfy. It's so soft. Nedzu softly laughed at Izuku's face that was squished from him holding all the stuffed animals against his cheeks. Nedzu didn't know how he got into the passenger seat of his car with his adopted human son behind the wheel. It started with Izuku wondering if heroes would have their driver or would have to drive themselves to work. Some heroes have quirks that allow them to bypass vehicles altogether, like the new hero Hawks, because he can just fly everywhere. It dived into a discussion of which heroes would use their quirk to get to work and who would be the one disguised on the train. There was a high probability that a lot of heroes would just disguise themselves in their civilian clothing and take the bus or train to get to where they need to go. Although some heroes were very recognizable even without their costumes, that probably had to drive to their agency to avoid the paparazzi. And somehow, their talk led to Izuku asking if he could learn how to drive. And Nedzu, being the helpful father that he is, offered to teach him the basics right away. Which led both of them to where they are now, inside Nedzu's car on an empty training ground in an attempt to teach Izuku how to drive a car. It led to this moment with Izuku and Nedzu facing down the street of the training ground used for the entrance exam. His car was the safest option because of all the airbags installed. And he can always get a new one if anything bad happens because of his pro-hero salary. Okay, Nedzu said, shifting to face his son calmly. Just take it slow. There's no one here that you can hurt. Izuku nodded stiffly, letting go of the brake so the vehicle can inch forward slowly. Then he slowly put his foot over the gas pedal and pushed. The car immediately jerked forward before Izuku pushed the brake with his foot. Nedzu bounced in his seat as Izuku slouched down in the driver's spot. Nedzu repositioned himself and held onto the passenger door. Alright, this time, slowly put your feet onto the gas pedal. Just press down gently until you find a comfortable speed. Thankfully, Izuku followed that order correctly. The car drove across the street in front of them. The gravel underneath the tires was the only sound that Nedzu was focusing on. Okay, try to turn here. Slow down your speed a bit and turn the wheel. When Izuku followed that order, Nedzu ended up bouncing up from his seat from the impact of Izuku accidentally popping up onto the curb. Izuku apologized, but he learned because he took the next turn safely. Now this particular road goes on for quite a while, so I want to see you speed up to maybe 33 kilometers give or take, Nedzu explained. He pointed his paw down the entire street for Izuku to see the entire length of it to where it ended at a building. Just stop before you get to the building and you will be fine. Take your time. Izuku drove down the street at 30 kilometers before slowing down almost halfway there and coming to a complete stop right in front of the building. And their time continued like that. Nothing bad started to happen until Izuku became a bit too confident in his abilities while speeding up. That's when it happened. Izuku was driving at 35 kilometers when the car sideswiped something that Izuku hadn't noticed. Upon realizing that the car hit something before the loud sound it made, he stopped the car. Izuku's eyes were widened before looking over at Nedzu, who was also surprised. They both craned their necks out of the window to see what they had bumped into. Oh, look, it's a civilian robot. Power Loader must have missed it when I asked him to take away any bots for us to do this, Nedzu said, looking past the bot only to find their head was separated from them just a few feet away. Izuku frowned at the wreckage. He put his hands over his mouth to yell at the damaged bot. I'm so sorry. Nedzu hummed, it's fine. It's only one bot. It's not like you will do it again. Nedzu cleared his throat. Well, that was an experience, wasn't it? I killed like 5 civilian robots, Izuku pouted as he clung to his old stuffed octopus arm. 6 robots. You ran over a little squirrel camera robot. Nedzu smiled as he corrected his son on how many electronics he destroyed. Just so you know, they weren't worth any points just in case you were aiming for them, Izuku groaned, leaning down into his bed to muffle the groans into the pillow under him. I wasn't, Izuku mumbled his answer back. Well, if you did, it was a good job with the aim, Nedzu calmly said, ignoring the way that Izuku groaned louder into his pillow. Izuku jerked his head back from the pillow. He shook his head and announced, moving on. Next topic, okay. Well, I understand you are getting older. Yeah, Izuku answered back. Nedzu paused before growing a smile. Do you need the talk? Izuku's eyes widened, flopping back onto the pillows below him. Back to the pillow. When two people love each other very much, Izuku blocked his ears with pillows around him. His muffled protests went unheard before he popped his head up from the pillow. Papa. I don't need the talk. I'm fine. I don't want to hear about the sex talk from you. Oh. Nedzu smiled, holding back his sadistic laughter at seeing Izuku's expressions. Would you rather I call someone else to educate you? Midnight is very well educated on this topic. No, alright. I won't tease you anymore. What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about school? It is starting very soon. Are you excited? Nervous? Nedzu asked. Izuku sighed, I am not exactly nervous about it because I know I have support if I fall behind. But I guess it's just because I'm scared. Scared? Scared of what? Papa, you have been homeschooling me all of my life, Izuku explained. I haven't had any real classmates before. The only friends I have that are my age are Tenya and Shoto. What if I mess up with my peers? What happens if they hate me? Nedzu shook his head calmly, they won't hate you, Izuku. You charm almost everyone you meet if your extended pro-hero family isn't enough proof for you. If you mess up, you can always right your wrongs. I don't think you will have trouble fitting into the classroom setting. But if you do feel that way, just inform either me or your homeroom teacher about it. Izuku nodded. Now are you ready to start at UA and become a pro-hero? Nedzu asked. Izuku nodded again. Yeah. I have a whole plan. Nedzu raised his eyebrows. Oh really? What's your plan? It's a plan for my future. So I start by becoming a pro-hero. Then after about 10 or 15 years, I will become a teacher at UA to help out the next generation. And then, I want to run a place like UA. A place where no one is discriminated against and people can work to become their best selves. I just want to make an impact on the hero society in some way to make someone's life better than before, Izuku continued while he gazed at the ceiling. He messed with his fingers as he thought about all the ideas running through his mind at full speed. I just want to help. Nedzu smiled, and I do not doubt that you will. Nedzu always knew that this day would come eventually ever since he first picked up Izuku's basket, the day that Izuku would finally be in high school starting his first year. That morning, he had woken up 5 minutes before his alarm to Izuku's excited footsteps running to the bathroom to get ready for the day. He calmly got himself dressed as Izuku rushed out of the bathroom back into his bedroom to change into his new uniform. After that, they both enjoyed a light breakfast of toast and fruit. And now, Nedzu was driving with Izuku sitting in the passenger seat with a huge grin on his face. Izuku's bright yellow backpack sat at his feet with all of his supplies that he may need inside. It even had a little black cat keychain on one of the zippers. It was like any other normal day except this is the start of his son's first day of high school. After they arrived at school, Izuku was bouncing on the balls of his feet. Nedzu smiled at his anticipation of straying his day. His backpack was bouncing with him, the keychain kept making a clinking noise when he jumped. I guess this marks your first day as an official UA student. I can't believe how old you are. It seems like only yesterday I was rushing outside to pick you up, Nedzu reminisced, remembering the small smile that Izuku had when he was still a young human baby. I'll see you sooner than later. Go on, little mouse. Izuku was about to retort back his father before Nedzu interrupted him. I don't care if you are as big as All Might, you are my little bitty mouse. Got it? I know, Papa. I was just going to tell you I'm going head through the vents to make one hell of an impression on my future classmates. And hopefully, my plan won't backfire on me, Izuku grinned, fixing the backpack on his shoulders. Are you going to tell them the secret of who I am on the first day? Nedzu asked, already smirking because he knew what the answer would be. Izuku returned the chilling smile. No, I'll let it simmer for a while before I come clean about it. I want to see how many clues they can piece together by themselves. Who knows? Maybe they will end up surprising both of us. The whole student body was gathered together inside a huge gymnasium. The management/business courses were already started to murmur ideas amongst each other about their techniques for promoting. Among them, a boy with purple hairballs was very adamant about using the sexy edge on female heroes to promote themselves. Another male student engaged in a quiet conversation with him about using sex appeal in different ways to communicate with the masses. The support classes were all sorted together with a few of them sharing their smaller ideas with their new classmates. Hatsume was already planning ahead of everyone else on how she can use the lab to her advantage while an upperclassman behind her fluttering her long eyelashes. Hatsume looked at the hero class placed nearby to see if there was any promising inspiration that she could find, and the general courses were the most well-behaved out of all of them, waiting patiently for the ceremony to end so they could get back to their class. And near the front was the first-year hero class. They were next to an empty set of chairs that should belong to the other hero course class. But where were they? Their answer wasn't answered as the principal walked up to the podium. They watched in anticipation as the intelligent animal climbed up a small set of straights to reach the mic at the podium. Mirio smiled with his two friends in the back of everyone with the other third years. Am I a bear, a mouse, or a dog? I'm the principal. Welcome to UE everyone, Nedzu began watching as the students' expressions glowed with excitement. This is the start of a new year here at UE. This is only the beginning in the chapter of many of your lives, Nedzu started. UE will be the start of many of your future careers that can range from analyst to pro heroes. This is a place where all is welcome and discrimination is not tolerated. From there, Nedzu explained the overview of the rules that the high school has in place. And he took joy in seeing the expressions as he made the teachers and students stand up to say school's motto to close up his presentation of the rules. And one last thing before I pass the ceremony on to your future teachers, I will let the first year classes know of something special. My son is joining UE as the first year and he will introduce himself to all of you soon when he is ready, Nedzu said with a chilling smile. Nedzu's son? Does he have a son? Everyone started to perk up at the sudden news, already trying to guess as to what the principal's son would be like and what exactly they would look like. Nedzu watched as almost every student was already guessing. I wonder how long it will be until everyone figures it out, Nedzu thought to himself, watching Midnight and Present mix knowing smiles directed at each other. It was only a matter of time before everyone learned about Izuku. A name that will surely shake up hero society in the best way. And that is the end of this story. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.